Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the fifth edition of Friday at 5. And without wasting much time, I'll hand it over to Professor Boria Majumdar, who will be moderating the session today. Over to you, Boria-ji.
Thank you so much, Atul. Friday at 5, our usual time for everything education. And we have a stellar lineup of speakers today. So without further ado, let me just set the ball rolling with a couple of minutes of initial comments. I hope you can hear me, Madhu Sharma ji. I hope you can hear me now because we were all muted till 5 o'clock. That's why you weren't able to. We call the session Curriculum and Pedagogy for Holistic, Integrated, Enjoyable and Engaging Learning. We had started this last week, and my apologies for having missed it last week. Why educators need to attend is exactly what you will get to know from our three speakers. Now, who are our three speakers? We've got with us Mrs. Aditi Mishra, Director Principal of DPS Gurgaon, Ms. Kavita Mathur, Vice President Academics, Vellamal Group of Schools, and of course, you have seen my colleague and the founder behind ICSL, Atul Lischan, who's perhaps the main brain behind what we call the ICSL Convo. And that's absolutely essential. Okay, what is the main focus for me? And being the father of a 6-year-old, my point here is what language should be the medium of instruction? If I want my daughter to go into an English medium school, should I have the prerogative? Should the school have the prerogative? Should the school teacher in Bangla? What about Himachal Pradesh and Jammu and Kashmir? What language of instruction should it be followed in such schools in these cities and these states? Do parents have the decision? Schools have the decision? Government has the decision? Should it be top down? Should it be bottom up? There are several key questions that will have to be addressed, which are part of the National Education Policy 2020 and which has resulted in serious intellectual debate. Now, what is ICSL doing here? What is Friday at 5? Friday at 5, simply put, is your forum to voice your concerns, your understanding about things education, about the key concepts, subjects of debate that need to be analyzed and put on the table. And as I've already said multiple times on this forum, we need to prepare a white paper, become the bridge between the educators, the school, the parents, the teachers, and the government. So we are in essence a think tank that is apolitical. We are not 9 o'clock news bulletins on national television. We will beat our head and sort of drum up nationalist hysteria or jingoism. That is not what our purpose is. We are constructively critical. Even if we are critical about certain things, we will be constructively critical to be that sane voice, that rational voice that India has started to miss these days on primetime TV or in newspapers. That is the forum that ICSL Friday at 5 seeks to become going forward. So I hope our motto is clear. This is not Congress versus BJP. This is not BJP versus the rest of the country. Absolutely not. Do not bring in your political agenda to this forum. If that is the case, this is not your forum. What it is it is for the students, for the teachers, for the parents, for the benefit of this country, for the benefit of education. And that is why I laud Atul Nischal and Priya Malhotra, the two people who have moved this in trying to make a difference to our society. So without further ado, let me be also clear about certain hygiene mentions. I want to take maximum questions. So like Rupa has, put your hand up and add that sign and give us the questions. I will give my speakers, each of them 10 minutes. So that is what the three speakers will get. And then we will have a solid 25 minutes of question answers based on their presentations. And if you want to make a quick comment, that is also welcome. So without speaking more, Mrs. Aditi Mishra, Director Principal, DPS Gurgaon, over to you, Mrs. Mishra, please. If you unmute yourself, so much, and the floor is yours.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Majumdar. Thank you so much, Dr. Nischal. It's an honor to be here. Now you brought up one of the points which is still under debate regarding multilingualism and the use of the mother tongue or the regional language. Let us remember a couple of things. Firstly, this is just the policy on paper. There are several steps now for the implementation bit to come in. And there is, like all of us are debating, there are various forums which are talking, debating, discussing, putting forward, their opinions. What is very welcome is now the MHRD has opened the door for debate and discussion. I mean, they have asked for inputs from teachers, from parents, from students to come in and talk about what has affected them or what they feel strongly about. So where the point that you brought out as a parent of a 6-year-old, when a parent puts a child in what is called an English medium school, the aspiration is very clear. You want the child to speak good English. Am I right? Having said that, in several pockets of the country, we are aware that children drop out of school because they don't understand English. And in those situations, in those cases, in those schools, I think it is imperative that the teachers must impart education in the regional language or in the local language to get the children back into school, to get them engaged as much as possible. So I think in the smaller cities, in the smaller towns, I think there is no doubt that this is going to be something which might hopefully bring in more children in, if the language of English is not alien to them. And English will be taught, of course. I mean, if the parent wants a child to learn English, they will learn English. But the medium of instruction could then be, for maths and for science, it can be the regional language. And as and when the child is comfortable with the English language, it switches over by class 5 or 6, whenever the child is ready. Our bigger concern right now in the debate in bigger cities like in Gurgaon, in Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, is that what happens to children coming into our schools? What if those children now want to learn the regional language? What if they want the medium of instruction to be a local language? How do we deal with that? And what is the local language? I mean, I don't know what the local language of Gurgaon is. I don't know what the local language of Delhi is. So there would be parents who might want Bangla, somebody might want Tamil, somebody might want Kannada. Now that would be impossible in a cosmopolitan city. That would not be possible to create, those pockets. But certainly, I'm imagining if I was in Ahmedabad, maybe I would have maybe 2 sections if parents really want the medium of instruction to be the local language, which would be Gujarati. I'd be happy to have 2 or 3 sections based on the requirement, and the others could switch over to English if they so desire. If the entire population wants local language, so be it. Because I think today a time has come where schools and parents have to work together. We always take parents' opinions on various matters, especially policy matters such as this. So if the overwhelming majority feels that there should be, the medium of instruction should be the local language, I think we should respect that and do our best by that. Now, there are many things that will come into this also. There'll have to be equally good textbooks ready. There has to be digital material ready in the local language. I can't open a section of maybe Kannada medium and there is no material available. Now, that would be just a futile exercise then. So a lot of steps need to be undertaken from now till the next, I think, 18 to 20 months before this can actually become a reality. But the thought process, I think, is a very positive one. And if the aim of the government is to bring in as many people into the education system and prevent dropouts, I think that it is definitely a step in the right direction. I do not think children who get scared of English, because they don't hear English at home, because they only hear English in school and therefore it remains an alien language for them. They are the ones who generally drop out. So as far as I can see as an educator, as a principal with 2 decades of experience handling a large school, I would say that this is certainly a challenge, but a very welcome challenge. If it's going to get children back into school, if it's going to make children's learning more wholesome, more fruitful, more long-lasting, by all means, anything for that. Thank you.
Oh, that actually in 7 minutes, it was one of the most interesting presentations you can hear. Trust you, Dr. Mishra, I mean, it was special. For me, the points that you made, one, I mean, basically you challenged the understanding of India. Is there one India? Is there 200 Indias? Are there 200 Indians? I mean, is Calcutta, a mini India? Is my locality a mini India? I mean, that sort of a suburban town, or what you've just said is exactly what the complexity of this country stands for. And that is why we are unique. That's why we are incredible. Number two, the point that you made, is English the most important or is English the worst form of class oppression in this country? When I start speaking English and my staff doesn't, do I have an edge? Do I resort to a form of class oppression inadvertently? And is that permeated from schools? Can this, the third point that you made is about the availability of textbooks and digital learning. Fantastic points. I think as I said, I mean, she's beautifully laid it out, Quick comment from you, Atul Nischal. A couple of minutes to you to talk about what she just said before I go to our second speaker.
I think one of the big things is that language has been, we have been obsessed by the so-called English medium schools in our country for a very long time. In fact, a very recent Hindi movie, which was Hindi medium, social problem, especially in smaller towns, where people had started feeling that that if you don't know English, you really can't succeed. And this is usually from the Hindi-speaking belt or a regional language-speaking belt. In fact, if you go to some of the smaller towns, you would actually see English medium being part of the name of the school because they want to promote that. What this policy does is very clearly outlines that that the medium of instruction is not really a parameter of success. In fact, if you look at some of the most progressive countries, you look at any of the Scandinavian countries, you look at Japan, China, Germany, France, they all teach in their own language, and students, and these are developed countries, and children succeed from those things. So one of the things that this policy could do, is remove that obsession from admitting our children to an English medium school. And I think in that sense, I totally agree with Aditi that we need material in regional languages, and I think NCERT is going to be coming out with bilingual textbooks and digital material. So that is something that we will look ahead, as and when those things get developed. Over to you, Boria.
Some very important points made. Time to go to Kavita ji. Kavita ji, your 10 minutes. It's 17:13. So basically what Aditi ji has done is she's given us a couple of extra minutes to play with. Question time, but your time starts now. You have your 10 minutes. The floor is yours.
Good evening. I think I should begin by thanking Aditi ji for the extra 3 minutes, I suppose. But I would actually like to begin a little at the beginning. The NEP has been touted as being very utopian, very idealistic, very, very futuristic, and to a lot of people quite an ambitious paper. I would like to say, as teachers, this is exactly what we are expected to be doing. Creating a utopian world, creating perfect citizens, preparing the children for the unknown tomorrow. So I would say this document actually is completely in line with what teachers are expected to deliver. That's the unknown every day. So I, in fact, would say I'm quite very, very welcoming of this document. It is a lot of good things put together, and it has finally managed. In fact, I would say it has come at a very good timing. People would say, what am I talking about? It's come at a time when the pandemic is on. But the one good thing of this pandemic is that, till now, any change we talk about going online, talk about using technology in education, talk about bringing in new techniques, experience. These were words in most schools. And when I talk of schools, I'm not talking about the schools in metros. They are truly doing some exceptional work. I'm talking about schools which are all over the country, in the suburban areas, in the rural areas. Talk about flip learning, experiential learning. They were probably doing it, I wouldn't know. But today, thanks to this pandemic, everybody has been catapulted into a scenario which they could not have imagined. There are schools which have set up mics in their villages so that children can hear what is being taught. Everybody is becoming innovative. So I think this policy with all the very, very forward-looking ideas has come at just the right time when the academic fraternity, the teaching fraternity is actually willing to experiment. So I would say it's a very good document at just the right time. The government gives us 10 years to implement it. I think today's news said it'll get implemented, begin its implementation from 2023. I would say today is the time to start planning, and it's not just for government to plan. It is for every management, every teacher, as well as parents who have been made a very important, who've been given a very important position in this. You know, they're an important stakeholder in this. So that way, I feel it's a very good document at just the right time. Coming to what you were talking about, that is the 4.11 part of the NEP, which talks about multilingualism and the power of language. Very interestingly, I'll just list out the 2-3 key points that it talks about. It says, wherever possible, the medium of instruction will be the home language, mother language, or community, or regional language. You know, the logic is very, very simple. Bridge the gap between the mother tongue and the spoken language. You see, the child, when he is coming to school for the first time, the child is moving from an informal environment to formal schooling, formal education. And this is where the mother tongue is going to be most helpful in the transition for the child. So it also says the second point, I'll come to this point a little later because it's really important. The second point it says is that the teachers can be bilingual. They can use bilingual teaching learning material. In a lot of suburban schools, and trust me, I have really worked in a lot of areas which cannot be called the A towns or the B towns also. And as you know, I'm presently working with a lot of schools which are spread all over Tamil Nadu. 5 of them are in Chennai, but a lot of them are in very, very small towns. And though we all know that the level, or assume rather, I would say that the level of learning is a little higher down south, but language is a challenge everywhere in India, wherever you go. So bilingual teaching can definitely be a big positive. But you know, the NEP emphasizes very, very specifically that it says that all languages have to be taught with high quality. Now that's a very important thing. Till now, we have had English as a medium of instruction, but people who were teaching and the language that was being taught, what was truly or rather what is truly the quality of the language. That's a very important point. And I think all of us will agree that though English is the medium of instructions, very few people can actually claim to know the language to be able to deliver the instruction correctly. And as we all know, the key point is that you deliver the instruction in a way which gets understood. That's the most important thing. So, in fact, it further says that the language does not need to be the medium of instruction to be taught. And, you know, the whole premise is that it's not just with India. In fact, way back in 1953, UNESCO came up with a report on the use of vernacular language in education. It went to great extent to emphasize the importance of mother tongue in the imparting of education. And it also emphasized that, you know, the mother tongue can be a very, very important tool for teaching cultural diversity. And we all know that children pick up the language best between the ages of 2 and 8 years. Of course, multilingualism can be a great, of great cognitive benefit. But what is most important is to ensure the learning outcomes are achieved, which is what the education policy is talking about. And if you look at the learning outcomes at that pre-primary level, what exactly are we talking about? We are ensuring that the child talks about his environment, about us. These are the general themes about the health, about the surroundings. And there it doesn't really matter which language the child has been taught in. It is more important to ensure that the child learns those basic concepts. Now, the important point over here is that these are very clear things given by the NEP. Not to say we are actually prepared for that. We can, like Atul very rightly quoted, there are some wonderful examples like Germany, Japan, China is of course a living example, how learning is imparted in the mother tongue and they have all succeeded. I would say we really need to give it a thought, because introducing English as the medium of instruction from the very first year is the main root cause for rote learning. When we don't understand, it's so much simpler to memorize and just give the answers. The second thing that has led to it is probably the kind of assessments we have that has encouraged rote learning, but definitely the medium of instruction has been a major impediment to that. You know, the sad part is that the language skills, because the mother tongue is not used, neither the teachers have truly got the language skills to impart the content in English, nor do the children acquire what we really want them to learn. So I personally think it's a wonderful thing to introduce multilingualism. How do we go about it? That's the challenge. So it's not very complicated, but the biggest challenge is, like Mrs. Mishra very rightly mentioned, resources are not there. There are so many communities where multiple parents with multiple languages can be there. In fact, in most of homes in India, parents will be speaking one language within the house, and outside in the community, they're talking a different language. So actually, which medium do we really want a child educated? It is also a challenge for the parent. They're also not very sure about it. So I don't think introducing this concept is truly a bed of roses for any one of us. It's a challenge, but not an unsurmountable challenge. I think the first thing that will have to be addressed is the mindset of the people, that if they are going to learn in their local language, in their mother tongue, it does not make it a less prestigious aspect. You know, the children are not really losing out, because rightfully said, a language can be learned in any medium. So if English is taught as a language from day one, and the medium of instruction is the mother tongue, I think the child has a better chance of grasping the language as he or she grows older. Of course, there are going to be many more issues: funding, governance, implementation. All these challenges are going to be there. There will always be some vested interests against changes, as we all know. But, you know, I was reading up, there are countries like Philippines, Guatemala, Mali. They have switched over to imparting education in their mother tongue, and they have seen a significant change. In fact, Mali, the small country, showed remarkable change in the increase in creativity and innovation in their children. The dropout rate in Guatemala fall drastically when they switched over to their mother tongue. So I think all these things are doable. But as you know, a very famous business quote says that a successful business is 9 parts implementation to every part of strategy. So I think the challenge has just begun for all of us. We really need to work on the implementation part now. Thank you.
You know, again, I hope I'm unmuted. Yes, I am. Important points. This has been actually one common thread across ICSL convos about the challenges towards implementation, that one thing is policy, one thing is implementation. Some of our other speakers have alluded to it. Before I sort of move on, there's a question: what extent of autonomy do schools have to implement the NEP? That's a question that has come. Would you want to address that? What extent of autonomy do schools have to implement the NEP? Do you want to take that? Atul?
Yeah, I think I would let Aditi answer that question.
Aditi?
Okay. So, as I said, the policy is like a guideline. And since it has a lot of positive aspects to it, I do not think schools would have any problem implementing these. Having said that, there are challenges, and some parts which are non-negotiable will be enforced by the government, I'm pretty sure, um, while the rest could be left to the school's discretion. And the way things are going now, the way schools are developing and moving ahead, everyone wants the best for their children. So whatever is best within the NEP, everybody will want. I mean, I don't think this is a negotiable thing that how much will we do and what will we do and what will we not do, because I don't like to use the word race, but whoever does not implement newness, whoever does not embrace change will be left behind. Let's be very clear on that. Today's parent is aware of what is happening. Children are very, very well aware. Teachers are aware. So if you're a progressive school, you will want to take in all the changes that are enshrined within the NEP and take it forward. Can I just address one bit that was being discussed about the challenge of multilingualism? The way we've been discussing this as a smaller think tank also. I think the issue is for people who are on transfer. An army officer or an air force officer or somebody in the police or the civil services. If they keep moving, and if schools are going to become completely wedded to the idea of a local language, that is going to create its own problems. Because how can you expect a child in the first 2 years to learn Gujarati compulsorily, then move to Maharashtra and learn Marathi compulsorily for the next 2 years, then move to a third state and learn the third language? So these will probably, in my opinion, be optional. So if a school has 5 sections, there would be 3 maybe up to class 5 who are offering the medium of instruction as a local language, and the other 2 would still remain English medium, just for the sake of parity. That's how I see it right now.
There's another question. Not all teachers are prepared, so they should get the training to speak in English. That's a comment kind of question. And there's another one which says China, Korea, Japan, or European countries like Germany, France, they have all one nation, one language, but India has so many, then it is a challenge to implement in metropolitan cities. Aditi, you want to address these two before I go to Atul?
So the challenge happened in 1947. Why are we talking about it now? There is a challenge. We are very proud. See, on one side, we're very proud of our varied heritage. We are very proud of the kind of languages we have, the kind of culture we have. So let's make the most of it. Let us make this our strength and not our weakness. That is how I would see it on a very positive note. Let us celebrate this diversity. Let schools focus on learning outcomes and not get diverted into what should be the medium of instruction. It doesn't matter. Your medium of instruction is what the child needs. So if there is a sizable number who needs education in a certain local language, let's go for it. Because if that is the purpose of education, to bring about change and to make children think and to actually have new things happening inside school, then that's the way forward. I don't think there should be a debate on one language, because I think that's a debate which is fraught with tension and politics, as you said right in the beginning. Very happily, there is no politics in this forum.
Atul, over to you, your 10 minutes, and then we'll take cumulative questions again.
Thank you, Moria. Thank you very much. We have spoken a lot about multilingualism, and therefore I'll try to focus on the second aspect that we wanted to discuss today. Now, in the last convo, I had mentioned about 3 aspects of a student development that the policy is trying to aim for. And for those who missed that convo, let me just repeat that, because that sets the context to what I'm going to be talking about. So there are 3 objectives of school education that the policy looks at. First is to create students who are aware, appreciative of our culture, our rich heritage, and also play an important role in promoting our culture. So culture sensitivity is one part of the purpose of education. Making good citizens is a very other important part that the policy focuses on throughout different chapters. And the third important part is that we want to create a nation of problem solvers. So gone are the times when education was seen as a medium to create masses of, workers who would take up specific tasks in a specific industry. I think the future, as we see it, is that the jobs are going to be more generalized. They would require better problem solvers rather than just accountants or cashiers or very specific roles. And if we really want to create problem solvers, we need to change a mindset as to how we look at knowledge as a whole. So currently in our system, the way we look knowledge is very fragmented. So we have maths, we have physics, we have history, and history has nothing to do with maths, and sociology has nothing to do with maths. Physics has nothing to do with, let's say, geography, and therefore these are all segregated. And similarly, arts, painting, vocations, they are all seen as fragments of a big system. What this policy in Articles 4.24 or 4.23 onwards talks about is how do we integrate the subject, the skills, and the competencies? How do we create a curriculum that integrates all of these three things together? Why do we need to do that? We need to do that because in real life, problems rarely occur in the confines of any one system. So today, if you look at pandemic, you need knowledge of biology, you need knowledge of sociology as to how the society interacts with each other. You need psychology, you need mathematics. That is how you will tackle the problem of pandemic. Similarly, if you look at garbage disposal, a problem that every major city has, human behavior is a very, very important part of understanding the problem of garbage disposal. What the policy talks about is integrating all these things and giving children a chance to explore everything and not just focus on a few subjects. So I think that's a very, very important and welcome step. What this would mean for schools is that our mindsets of teachers, which sometimes are very rigid because we've been used to acting in a certain manner, and educationists are known to have very strong views and very rigid views. But I think those mindsets need to break down. Those mindsets need to change. One of the things that the policy talks about is in Article 4.25, it talks about mathematics and mathematical thinking that needs to be developed throughout all stages of education. Now, as a mathematician, I'm very happy. But as educators, we all need to understand that when we talk about mathematical thinking, it is not restricted to any particular discipline. Mathematical thinking is used by a historian. Mathematical thinking is used by a sociologist. Mathematical thinking is used by a psychologist to work in their own professions. And I think if we really need to, we should, first of all, my recommendation is that all the schools should try to inculcate mathematical thinking. But for that, we will first need to go to the drawing board and empower our teachers to understand what mathematical thinking is. I think when the government talks about creating an integral curriculum, it also wants to incorporate vocations. So for example, the internship program that the government suggests, a 10-day bagless internship, I think it's a great idea when students in the middle school get a chance to spend 10 days with a carpenter, with an electrician, with a mobile repair person, and see what he does. Not only do they acquire the skills of that particular vocation, but they also tend to respect the person more. So if I know what a carpenter does, or if I know what a plumber does, what an artist does, and how does a sculptor work, I tend to appreciate their work. I think it's both ways. So schools would need to look at, and for these things, we don't need to wait for the government to tell us when to start implementing. I mean, any principal who desires from tomorrow to launch an internship program in their schools is free to do that because the policy says so. So you don't really need a circular from CBSE to start a program like that. So I think overall the policy is a very good policy, but yes, there are going to be resistances. Coming back to a little bit about multilingualism, Andhra Pradesh government is right now fighting a case with Supreme Court because they want that all the Telugu medium schools should be converted to English medium schools. Now that goes against some of the things that Dr. Misra mentioned or Kavita mentioned, and it goes against all the data. But for some reason, there is a state that wants to convert its school to English medium schools, right up till class 6. These things would happen over the next few years, I think, once that policy gets settled. But let's hope for the best. I personally feel there's a lot of scope of doing very innovative work. See, for a very long time, we as educators used to keep saying that we want to innovate, but there is no room for us to innovate. The CBSE has fixed guidelines, the policies are very fixed and rigid, and they are seeded in the British Raj, etc., etc. And we kept talking about that. Well, the good thing is all those barriers to innovativeness are gone. So if today a school, a principal, a teacher wants to do something innovative, which is good for the students, there is room to do that. And that's what I believe in. Over to you, Boria.
Some important points made by Atul. In fact, I've already started getting comments which says, well spoken. Who was the last one? Beautifully spoken, Mr. Nischal Chitrangada Mehra. Glad you liked some of the points made, Chitrangada. Building skills important. I agreed with the opinion. Knowledge should be provided in mother tongue. Teachers want, okay, let's get questions. Let's get questions. I mean, if anyone wants to raise his or her hand and ask a question, please, let's do that while, anybody. While I sort of scroll through, there are lots of points that have been made. I'm trying to scroll through the questions. If Atul, you spot anybody, why don't you tell me in the interim and we can take more as we go along.
Rajesh Pandey, I think he's a principal. And are you there, Rajesh?
Go for it. Go for it. Yes, Rajesh Pandey, Principal Air Force School, Kanpur. If you are there, Rajesh. Yes, Chief?
Yes.
Yeah. Go for it.
Sir.
हाँ जी, बोलिए. हाँ.
In fact, means being at Air Force School, I mean, the same problem is there. The people, they are coming, posting from different places. So the language will be the barrier for the children who are studying basically in the primary classes. So that is the concern of mine.
Okay, who wants to take that?
One of the things, Rajesh, is that like Kendriya Vidyalayas have already taken this decision to not shift the medium of instruction from English. And I'm very sure that army schools on a whole as a group, because there are about, I think, 600 or odd schools.
Yeah.
And all the 600 schools are located in different states. I foresee that the management of army schools will take a similar decision in the future, and the medium of instruction will stay as English.
Okay. Anjali, you wanted to ask a question. You raised your hand. Anjali Dhar. Anjali, if you unmute yourself, please. And after that, Archana Sharma. Anjali Dhar and then Archana Sharma.
Very good evening to everybody there. And I wanted to get a little more clarification about the mathematical thinking that Mr. Atul happened to tell us about. I would like to understand it by giving certain examples with relation to any of the topic that he wants to say. Thank you.
Atul.
Okay, mathematical thinking consists of the way we take decisions sometimes. So I'll give you very simple examples. Inductive thinking and deductive thinking are two forms of thinking that we use. Now, lawyers and judges, when they are in a judicial system and when the judge is sitting, in the chair trying to understand a case, he looks at all the evidences and from there he deduces the conclusion, the decision. Now, the judge, for all I know, has more power of deductive reasoning, deductive thinking than any one of us put together because they are objective, they're trained to objectively look at the evidence from the lens of the law and only accept evidence that fits the law and then make a conclusion. So anywhere, whether it's garbage disposal, whether it's climate change, when you're looking at hard facts and from the facts, you need to make some conclusions, that's deductive reasoning. I'm just giving you one example. Now what happens is your students are already, right from childhood, they already take deductive, they use deductive thinking to make decisions. And I'll tell you how they do that. When a dad enters the house in a relatively bad mood, the child can figure it out that this is not the time to ask for pizza or a mobile phone. Now, the child has made that decision of not asking for the pizza by deductive thinking. He has looked at a fact that his dad is angry, is not happy, and therefore he has taken this decision. Coming to mathematics, when we do geometry, that is the part where we develop the skill of deductive reasoning in students, and that is the reason why while doing geometry in a proof, we want them to explain the reason of writing each step that they write. So I hope I've been able to give you one example, otherwise I can go on for 3 days on mathematics.
Archana?
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go for it.
Yes, actually, my question was about this language only. How we can make all the students, especially I am teaching in Gujarat. So here people think that English, their children should study in English medium school. And I want to ask how to make them more confident in English. As the principal sir of KV Kanpur, he said earlier, he is principal in Kendriya Air Force School Kanpur. I too have studied in Kendriya Vidyalaya in various states. When we were shifted from Ambala to Chennai, there also we faced many problems. I was around 10 or 11 years old, and the medium of teaching there was English. Actually, in Kendriya Vidyalaya, what happens? There are few subjects which are taught in Hindi as well as in English, like social studies. We studied social studies in Hindi in Ambala, but when we went to Chennai, there they were teaching in English. So all the subjects were English except Hindi. So children there, they are able to cope up because they are studying in different schools in different states. But I want to know, how can we bring confidence in our children, those who are there in they are staying in the same state for their whole life.
I'll go to Aditi and Kavita on that.
Since Kavita is teaching in the Chennai and she's looking after 19 schools in Chennai, Kavita, do you want to take up that question?
Yeah, both Aditi and Kavita. Kavita, you go first, then I'll go to Aditi also.
Okay. It's a very interesting question, and I completely understand the perspective of both what Mr. Pandey has said as well as Archana, because I am also from the same fraternity, and my son has moved 3 states, not 1, 3 states during one academic session. So he started by learning Punjabi in Firozpur. And from there, we moved to a tiny little town in Raiwala where there was pure Hindi. And before the end of the session, we were in Nasik where he was learning Marathi. So I completely understand it is not a very practical thing when we hear of it. But if you really read the finer print of the NEP, it says wherever possible. That's the most important thing. It is not mandatory for anybody to switch over to the language of the region. That's one very important thing. So like if Archana said, if all the children are from the Gujarati background, you do not, the majority is there, definitely impart your training, give your, the instruction, medium of instruction should be Gujarati. But yet another thing which they have said is that the NEP says that every language should be taught with high quality. So the challenge is not the child's, the challenge is the teachers. So here is where we come to the roadblock that I was talking about, which is we really need to focus on the training of the teachers. The teacher who is teaching English should be really well equipped to teach English appropriate the level. That's the only challenge, nothing else. If we are, because in the primary years, and this, I was reading some of the comments, some children have written, some teachers have written, how will the children take the board exam in their mother tongue? So there is no question of board exam happening in the mother tongue. It is very specifically suggested for the first group of years, that is the first 5 years. And if possible, extend, it is recommended till grade 5, and where possible, extend it up to grade 8. So like, let's take the example, Atul asked me in Chennai, they all teach in English, but if the same concepts were explained to them in their mother tongue, it would be really wonderful. I have come across children who are learning Tamil, but are basically from Hyderabad or one such city in Andhra. So they are basically talking Telugu at home. They're learning in English, and the parents insist that they should also learn Hindi because you don't know in the future they might want to move to North. So it's like a child in grade 2 and 3 is speaking 4 languages. It's not very difficult for children. These are actually realities down south. But the point over here, very, very important, is there is a huge shift which has been advised, advocated, shift from rote learning to actually start understanding what are the learning outcomes you want out of the children. Focus on that, and then actually the medium becomes the most important factor if you focus on the learning outcomes. This is all I have to say.
Aditi, quickly your take before I take other questions.
Okay, so the 2-3 things over here. So Archana was talking about children's confidence. So my 2 penny bit worth, confidence has nothing to do with the medium of instruction. First, as a daughter of an army officer, I moved 7 schools across the country. But I think that was the home and the school that worked together to create the person that I was, frankly. I mean, so I don't think a medium of instruction should decide how confident a child is or how well groomed or whatever he or she is. The second thing about language, like we were discussing, is as a, I forgot your name, Kavita. Kavita said that it's not compulsory, it's only suggested. So the moment you find a child is falling out because of language, then you address it in that way. So I'll give a small example here. Within my school, I run a school for the underprivileged. In the afternoon, it's called a remedial school. I have about 1,500 children there. They struggle with maths, science, and they struggle a lot with accounts and economics. So I have got my students of the morning shift teaching them in Hindi, so that whatever doubts exist in the form of podcasts, in the form of question answers, they've broken down, they've deconstructed that concept for them in their language. They will, of course, have to do the exam in English medium. Most of them prefer that. But for the purpose of understanding, yes, the mother tongue, the local language, or whatever language the child is comfortable with has to be used. And that is done, I think, in most good schools. We do switch over so that the child can understand better because our focus is the child. Thank you.
Sindhu, I think three questions quickly. Sindhu Ganeshan, Deepak Pusti, and Mohan Pradeep Sharma. Can I please have your questions? And my speakers, please keep your answers a little short because I want to take maximum questions. Sindhu, to you first. Sindhu Ganeshan, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
We can't see her. I think she lost her connection.
Okay, then we'll go to the next person. We'll go to Deepak. Deepak?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good evening to all.
Yes, we can hear you. Go on.
Sir, actually, my question is that when the language case is coming, then bilingual, it is okay, but multilingual, how it's possible? Because I worked in South India as well as also West India. So my mother tongue is Odia, but I can speak that English and Hindi basically in all over, whatever the school is there in all over India, CBSE or ICSE. So according to that, we can speak English and Hindi. But if we go for the any other language like Gujarati, Telugu, Tamil, then I think it's too difficult for us to learn that language. So from my point of view, I think bilingual, it's okay. But in case of multilingual, that I have little bit doubt. So please clarify, is multilingual is necessary for all the teachers?
Atul, you want to take that?
Yeah, I'll take that. And this is a very good example of mathematical thinking, actually. In mathematics, we have a concept called polynomials, which means an algebraic expression that has many terms. And then we have a term called binomial, which means an expression that has two terms. Now, all binomials are also polynomials. Now, similarly, being bilingual is a subset of being multilingual. So when they say multilingual, they do not mean that you should know 5, 6, 10, or 20 languages, because according to the census of 2001, India has 122 major languages and about 1,200 languages and dialects. So you really can't know all of them. Being bilingual is a first step, and it fits the chart of being a multilingual. So don't be under the pressure that you have to teach, 5 languages to kids. Any 2 or 3 would be fine.
Okay. I've got 2 more hands, Reni and Madhu Sharma. Reni, Bijosh, go first.
Yeah, hi, good evening. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I wanted to emphasize that, see, English language is very important. I myself am a born South Indian. I'm a Malayali. But my father, as was he being in army, I was sent and I studied in Punjabi. So my parents were very insistent that I go to a convent school. Why? Because my parents themselves did not know much English. So I had to learn Punjabi as well as English from school. And my parents insisted that I learn mother tongue, that is Malayalam, at home only. So they never used English or any other language along with me. The same thing what happened when I learned Punjabi, English and Malayalam. I was married to a Malayali. Then I was transferred along him to Bangalore, where my son had to study Kannada. So see, when we define the, instead of mother tongue, we need a common language which can connect all of us together. And I find English is much more easier rather than mother tongues. Mother tongues, they will certainly use at home. It is not necessary that all parents use English at home. English, they will. If we try to have the English language from the basic level, that is from pre-primary, Gurukul, kindergarten level, the child's confidence level, not only confidence level, his basic understanding to all the other languages will develop, will define itself. So I feel my suggestion or my question is, shouldn't in the kindergarten level only the child be given the English language as a medium to teach? I'm not insisting. See, I have myself have been to so different states. I have been to Punjab, I have been to Delhi, I have been to Kerala, and I have been to Karnataka. So I have got all these languages. When I am teaching in kindergarten, it is easy for me to understand when they are talking their own mother tongues. I'm able to understand. Maybe I'm not able to say the same thing. I give them an answer in their own mother tongue, but I'm able to understand.
Question.
The question is, isn't it English necessary for even pre-primary and kindergarten children also, so that it can be developed in their the further ages also?
Okay, got it.
Easy.
So yeah, go ahead, Aditi, go ahead.
Aditi?
So how do we define necessary? English will be taught as a subject, but wherever required, because you want to keep children in school, please understand the purpose of making it multilingual, understand the purpose of introducing local language. We do not want children to fall out of school. Children in small cities, in small towns, and coming from not very privileged homes, fall out of school because they don't get English. They don't understand it. So the purpose of the government is only to ensure children stay in school. There is no talk of changing English as a medium of instruction completely. And I will again say this because you mentioned it again, English is not equal to confidence. Confidence is inbuilt in many other ways, not just through a language, especially not English.
Okay, last couple of questions before I close. Madhu and Sindhu. Sindhu, I saw your hand raised again. Madhu, question from you.
Yeah, my question essentially is that, first is that NCERT, I'm sure, would create high quality skill-based curriculum. The other thing is that we would probably need bilingual teachers. And the third query is that translation is not the best of methods. And maybe there's a language hodgepodge.
Okay, Atul, did you get that? I lost the last part.
So I think your first question was that NCERT would, can you repeat that part? They would come up with good quality content.
Yes. So what she was saying was that when you translate an English book into other languages, there may be something lost in translation.
Okay.
But that's not what is being planned, incidentally.
Yeah. So it's not going to be a translation. It's called transcription, and they will have, they will do good treatment to the two languages.
Okay, got it. The next one, Sindhu, if you are there, Sindhu.
Can I give a small example of this?
Yes, yes,
when you're, because they wanted to localize the curriculum as well. So when you're talking about crafts, for example, it may not be necessary to talk about only a craft. So it would be state specific. When you're talking about cuisine, it will be state specific. When you're talking about agriculture, it will be state specific. Because children living in Rajasthan don't know what a flood looks like. And likewise, children living in Nagaland have no idea that, there could be a drought somewhere. So it's going to be made more real to the child so that when they read something, in the course of studying, they will know, yes, there is a state in India called Rajasthan where this problem exists, but they should essentially know more about their own state to bring alive the culture of that state.
Got it. There are some questions about personal email addresses of Aditi. I think you suggest, you guys should look up her school details, because this is not a forum where we will give out personal phone numbers or email addresses unless she wants to give it out. So
not my phone number, they can write to me. My email ID is on my school website.
Okay,
Delhi
that's what I
School,
said.
Sector 45.
Please go to her school website and you can absolutely write to her. Last couple of questions. Sindhu, if you're there. I think we've missed you again. Okay, is there anybody else? Let me quickly check.
We have Mohan Sharma.
Mohan, let's get Mohan. Mohan, if you're there. Mohan Pradeep Sharma. 3 hands. So where are you?
Sindhu is back,
Shreya,
I think.
Shreya, Sindhu is back. Shreya, if anybody is back, please unmute yourself. Shreya Narsing, Mohan Pradeep Sharma.
Yeah. Hi. Good evening, one and all. I'm Shreya Maheshwari.
Yes,
Shreya
please.
Narsing.
Yeah, go on.
My question is I accept being multilingual is the best way to teach kids, but what about the parents? Because we speak about the children, we are speaking about the teachers, but where are the parents here? And not all the parents are going to take it positively, because being in school, being a school teacher, primary teacher, we face this. The child comes to school, parents are like, my child cannot speak in English. Fine. We try to make them, but it is not possible. But how do we explain this to the parent? Because they enroll their child keeping in mind that this is an English medium school. And there is no platform, there is no base given at home. And that they want the child to speak in English. And as of now, if it is multilingual, I guess it would be more easier. I just want to know, like, how can things be communicated to parents in a very comfortable and in a very polite way? And I hope I don't know, like,
Okay,
I'm,
that's a good question, Shreya. Let's take the other two questions also. Sindhu, are you there now?
Yeah, sir. I
Yes,
just want to know. Yeah, I'm
please.
Sindhu.
Yeah.
Sindhu from Kerala. Good evening to all. I did my schooling and graduate B.Ed everything in Chennai, and after that I shifted to Kerala. So if I want to teach in local language, the teachers who are coming from different states, how they can teach the primary children in the local language when they get, we were talking about the children when they get transferred from one place to another. What about the teachers stage? Because I am from Tamil Nadu and I don't know Malayalam. I used to teach the children in English and a little bit of Malayalam. So we have to give local language in good quality. Means my Malayalam is not much good. So what will be the next source for the other teachers who are coming from a different states or something like that?
Okay,
Just
got it.
want to know that.
Got it. Yes, thank you. The last one, is there anybody else with their hands up, or I will take the answers?
Mohan Pradeep Sharma is back also.
Mohan, yes.
So we can take his question also.
Mohan, can we get your question, please? Yeah. Mohan Pradeep Sharma?
He's
No.
not
Okay,
audible.
Atul, why don't you take one and then I will go to Kavita and Aditi to take the other one.
Okay, I think let me address the one with the parents. Okay, see, first of all, I think parenting is going to be a very important part for any school implementing any aspect of NEP, not just the language aspect, because parents also have very strong opinion about what is right education and what is wrong education, and sometimes they can come and tell us what is the right way to educate children. So I think that's going to be an important part. As long as we can explain to them in a structured manner, maybe through multiple sessions, that language should not be a barrier to learning. I think if this is the message that we can give them, that suppose they have to choose between language and learning, what will they choose? Do they want to still stick to English and sacrifice the learning part, or would they want better learning in whatever language that works for the child? Once they understand that, and once they see the difference in children, that will happen over a period of time. I'm very sure they're going to be supportive of this also. So that's how I would deal with parents in any school for this matter.
Okay, got it. Why don't I give Kavita a quick 1 minute for the final question. Kavita?
So her question was, what does a teacher like her do? To begin with, it is not mandatory. All schools are not going in for this. Has been overemphasized in the policy. It is just a suggestive thing. It has been suggested that to ensure that a child understands, learns, and perceives, as one of the participants is writing over here, it's important to teach in the language which the child understands. It is just not being said that English will be removed as the medium of instruction everywhere, universally. It's very, very optional. They have thrown it open to the management, to the schools, to see what is really important. But as I also mentioned earlier, the mindset of teachers, parents, society, everything is going to be very important. So I think if you can't teach Malayali, then you should just go for a school where English is still the medium of instruction.
That's a nice way to end. And I hope, a lot of you have said that you've benefited from it. That's the whole point. I hope you have, because the point of this session, and by the way, let me put this on record, everyone who's come here is sort of contributing time, energy, effort pro bono. A lot of effort is going in, right? So this is only meant to benefit you. It is meant to benefit teachers, educators, students, parents. everyone who's part of our fraternity. So I hope you have benefited. Wishing everyone a very safe, healthy, and happy Teachers' Day. Hopefully it will be the start of a year which is better than 2020. When we celebrate Teachers' Day in 21, we have a COVID-controlled, vaccinated world. So I hope teachers and students celebrate tomorrow with the hope that things will get better in the coming months. The vaccine is still far away, so do not underestimate that virus. 80,000 plus cases, 12 lakh tests in this country. The infectivity is still about 7.5, 8, and it's your responsibility as teachers, educators, to become teachers and educators of society at large. Be that. Make that your mission, your vision, your commitment on Teachers' Day. We will be back next Friday with our 6th ICSL Convo. On behalf of Atul Nischal, a deep thanks to Kavita, to Aditi for their deep insights and provocative and passionate renditions. To everyone who asked questions, thank you very much for attending. On my behalf and everyone involved in ICSL, thank you very, very much for attending. See you next Friday with Friday at 5.